I'm just gonna I'm gonna wrap through this whole thing because there's so much to talk about. And well, let me pause. This is what I find interesting. And he's going to come back to it, but I'll give you a foreshadowing. He's going to come back to it. I think that as he looks back at his career, you got to remember this guy joined when he was a kid, and he was in World War I. And think about how things changed by his own admission in between World War I and World. So when he was World War I and post World War I, he was, in his mind, this leader, right? That was going to lead from the front. That was going to make things happen. As the nature of war became more dispersed, all of a sudden, you had to have a little something that we call decentralized command.
He can't be in front of his unit the whole time.
And that would be the same. And I think as he became more mature and as he got older, hey, look, when you took it's kind of hard. I talk about this with Leif. Leif will say like, hey, I wish I would have done X, Y, and Z when I was when I was the assistant platoon commander. Leif could write a book about the things he wished it would have changed when he was assistant platoon commander, for sure. He was fresh out of the fleet, Naval Academy fleet, and now all of a sudden he's in a SEAL platoon, right? Do you think that if he went back and did that right now, do you think he would do things a little bit differently?
Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. We all would.
Yeah.
We all would do that. And so here we have a guy that went through the entire rank structure of the Army, the entire thing. And as he got older and got better and got more experienced, I would think he'd say, this is what I should have done when I was a platoon commander, but I didn't. And here's what I would do differently. But maybe because the wars were different and it was more centralized and it wasn't dispersed, everyone was together. So I think what I see is him saying, listen, it's a different thing. Whereas I look at it now and say, wait a second, it might have been a different thing for you. But if you could go back knowing what you learned eventually, you might say, hey, I actually would have led differently. And I'll tell you right now, even in a platoon, even in a freaking squad, even in a fire team, the techniques that he's going to talk about, what's better? If you're in charge of a platoon, what's better? Grabbing the reins and pulling them down? Or is it better to guide them and let them run?
Yeah.
The answer is so obvious. But he digs in a little bit. Chain of responsibility. And also you must realize as you go up in various echelons of organization of the Army, from the squad on up, you become increasingly removed from the individual soldiers, and your influence on the individual soldier is no longer carried by an eyeball-to-eyeball approach. It is carried on through the echelons of your command down to him. And you become increasingly just an image to him, which you develop in several ways, but you get to the field of proper staff organization and staff relationship because that is very important part of commandership and generalship. What is that saying? What it's saying is when you're in a leadership position, as you go up in ranks, you're right. You don't have eyeball to eyeball all the time. Guess who you do have eyeball to eyeball with? Your subordinate leaders. Yeah. And your subordinate leaders have to nurture those close personal relationships with their troops so that influence that you have as the commander is felt all the way down through the front lines. Back to the book. In your recent military review, there's an article on faulty staff relationships. I hope it will cause you to give a little thought to that problem because it is an important one. You come to one of the most important parts of commandership and leadership, and that is establishing a chain of responsibility so that every man in your organization knows who he works for and who works for him. That's cool. I get that. That's called a chain of command. That is basic. How many organizations have you been in where that wasn't known? I've been in several. I had no idea who I worked for or who made out my efficiency report. After all, and this is one of those things where I get a little cringy, as my daughters would say. After all, there's one basic rule in the Army that you can't violate. And I, over a period of 44 years, have tried to violate many of them. I have been successful in a few, but this one I have never been successful in. And that is, you work and devote your loyalty to the man who makes out your efficiency report and the man who endorses it. If you don't do that, you're never going to be a general. So, to me, this is wrong. To me, relationships are stronger than the chain of command.
Yeah.
And luckily, he's going to counter this. He's going to counter his own statement later.
Of course. Yeah.
Establishing a chain of responsibility is just as important in your... And look, this is proven out by Hackworth, who built these incredible relationships, and that's how he ran things. Establishing a chain of responsibility is just as important in your staff as it is in your command. If you don't have that, your headquarters mills around and creates what I call command and staff inertia. That is a state of frustration and lack of purpose that exists in many military staffs. Okay. People got to know what the chain of command, for sure.
Yep.
Then, of course, it comes down to the art of commandership or generalship as to how you issue your directives or how you project your desires and will down through the chain of command. Oh, I read that wrong. As to how you issue your directives or how you project your desires and will down through the chain of command. It comes out in directives and so forth, which is an art within itself, and which I am sorry to say we sometimes don't do very well. We could do a lot better when we're doing that in the field. I've worked at times for a commander for whom I felt I wasn't doing a good job because the truth of the matter was I didn't know what he wanted me to accomplish. Okay. Second law of combat. Simple, clear, and concise. If I don't know what you want me to do, there's no way I can accomplish it. And by the way, whose fault is that? It's my fault. If I don't know what my boss wants me to accomplish, what do? I raise my hand and ask my boss, what do you want me to accomplish? What's the mission here? What are we going to get done? What's the end state? What's your intent? Next section, improving your unit. Now we get to the point of making progress as a commander. I can't conceive of anybody who takes over a company, a battalion, a brigade, or division, a corps, a field army, who doesn't sit down and say to himself, how will I impress upon my superiors, the men who make out my efficiency report, that I am a good commander? Once again, you get a little bit of that, I'm looking to get promoted, which I don't like. How do I do that? I've seen it done every way that you can think of in my career, but I would suggest to you that the best way to do it in the military organization is through the exercise of what I call little pluses, of making a little progress in every field every day. Over a period of time, if you do that, your organization will tighten up. Your organization will become good, and you'll gradually come up with the understanding and the reputation of really being a good commander. You will also not create turbulence, which detracts from the effectiveness of your unit. So I like this idea, doing little things, get a little bit better every day. But then he goes into this with that thing when he talks about turbulence, he goes into it. I've seen people walk into an organization and immediately start to make headlines. I would like to point out to you a great truth in the military, that he who lives by headlines is destroyed by headlines. Remember that if you start seeking headlines and creating images of yourself as a Superman, pretty soon somebody will find a hole in your armor, and when he does, he will certainly give it to you. That follows from the rule about the monkey who climbs up a pole. The higher he gets, the more of his rear he shows to the people who are below him, and that often goes for a person who upped the chain of command in the echelons of the Army. So, good. I totally agree with that.